Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you all for joining us. This is the Marriage Matters podcast. I'm Alan,
And I'm Tiffany.
and we are so glad that you all decided to join us this evening. We are the co-leads for the Love Elevated Marriage Ministry at Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church here in Kokomo. Just glad that you all joined us this evening.
Amen. Before we jump into tonight's festivities, we want to acknowledge our pastor, Dr. Lonnie Earl Anderson Jr., as well as our Director of Women and Families Ministry, Sister Yvette Breckenridge. Thank you so much both for your leadership and your encouragement.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are excited this evening. We have guests this evening that's going to hang out with us and have a conversation. We have Alex and Keith Parker. So glad that you all were able to join us. Good evening, good evening. How y'all doing?
All right.
Hi,
We good.
friends.
How you doing?
Hey.
Thank you all so much for taking the time out to join us. We just gonna have a conversation this evening. We got a few questions for you all. We're gonna let the conversation flow and we'll go from there. We'll get started by you all tell us about your love story. How'd you all meet? And take us from the time you met until you guys decided to walk down the aisle.
Yes.
I would love for him to tell this only because I just add so many details. And so I feel like you should tell it.
I feel like details would be a good thing. I want to give the people the details.
Wow. Okay. So we met in college. We were in college and we met because someone wanted to date him. Who knew? And so that's how we met.
And I wasn't interested.
And somebody wanted to date him and introduced me to him. And it was really like sparks fly, at least for me. But the sparks fly did not make me like, oh, it actually made me like, no.
Yeah, it was
very uncomfortable.
It was one of those weird things because it's like the day I met her, and I know people say this, but the day I met her, I knew she was my wife. Like I literally,
love that so much.
I met her, I knew she was my wife, but at the same time, I was like, I don't want this.
Yeah. I don't know what my first thought was. I think I was like, this is just scary.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I'm not really sure how much in between time, but we started talking for all of 2 weeks. And he calls me and he says, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, yeah, this is kind of serious. You seem like a serious kind of girl. I don't want to hurt your feelings. Yeah. I don't want to let you down. I'm out. Yeah. And I was like, I appreciate the honesty, but wait.
Yeah, because we were still, in college at the time, and I was still kind of young. We were both young. And I thought this
What year was it in college? Was it freshman year, sophomore?
He was
junior.
A senior?
I think I was a junior.
Oh, okay.
Because this is 2006.
Okay.
When we started talking the first time.
Okay.
And so I was a junior. And I just knew that if I started, because I wanted to kind of, just hang out, be cool and stuff. But when I actually started talking to her, I was like, oh, this is not just a hangout girl. Like, if I talk to her, this is it. This is it. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that. So I let her know. Like, I was just honest. I was like, all right, look, you're way more serious than what I thought I wanted at the moment. So we're just going to let that go. Fast forward to, I think, like a year or so later, maybe like 2 years later, she went out.
When did wife material become a bad thing? But I really did appreciate it.
Girl.
I did appreciate the honesty, but I also like loathed him from that moment on and decided that if he ever tried to talk to me again, it was a no for sure. So it was 2007.
Was it? Okay. Yeah.
It was 2007. My family and I went to Italy for the first time. We were singing. One of my aunts lived there for a long time. And she had this idea to kind of get her sisters and their nieces together to like sing up and down the country. And so that was our first time going. And I hadn't been able to check it was MySpace. MySpace was popping at the time. And so I wasn't able to check it for probably about, I guess, a week or two, whatever. We get to a hotel. I check my MySpace. There are all these messages from Mr. Parker.
I wrote her every single day.
And I was just like, what is going on?
I don't know what it was, but it was just something about knowing that she was no longer in the country made me feel like, man, I really miss this girl. So literally every day she was gone, I wrote a letter just telling her how much I missed her.
Yeah, I thought it was ridiculous. So my cousin's like, who's this guy? And I'm like, nobody. I don't know what he's doing.
Fast forward 2008, she comes back into the country.
No, it was 2000.
I'm not saying
yeah, at the beginning of 2000. You're right. Sorry. I'm sorry.
2008, when she's back in the country, I hit her up and I asked her, "Hey, have you still never been on your first date?" This is when she finally decided, talk to me again as a friend. And I asked her, has she still never been on her first date? And she said no. So I said, bet, I'm going to take you out on a date.
Yeah.
I found this nice Italian spot in Columbia, because we were living in South Carolina at the time. I found this nice Italian spot, and because I figured she had just got back from Italy and she might be missing it. So I was like, all right, well, let me give her something nice. So she went there, and she was like, she really enjoyed it because it was kind of authentic. It felt authentic to like what she had just came from. And I think that night, was that the kiss?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had never had a really much relationship, so I just had a lot of rules. And so at the time I had told him, like, basically, if you kiss me, we go together.
Okay.
And she meant that.
So my thing was, I really wasn't, I know I'm on a college campus. I wasn't interested in being confused. And so my thing was like, if you show up at my door, please don't show up with red roses. And if at the end of the day, if you decide to kiss me, you now are in a relationship. So if we're kicking it, let's kick it. If not, then don't kiss me. And kiss me is what he did. So that was when we were in relationships.
We were in a relationship then.
Of the boundaries and I know what I want.
Oh yeah, and it was crazy because that's really the one thing that set her apart from any other young lady I'd ever spoke to, because she said what she meant and she meant what she said, and she made me adhere to what she. Because anybody else, they'll give me a plan and a few hours later it'll be different. But with her, what she said is exactly what she meant, and she means that thing no matter what. So that's what kind of really locked me into her. We dated, I think, for about maybe
we dated a couple years,
2.5, maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
And then we ended up breaking up again.
Yeah. I moved back to California.
She moved back to California. I stayed in South Carolina.
I then moved to Indiana in 2011.
Okay.
I was here for almost a month, and he called, apparently single and free. And at this point, I wanted to tell him where to go. I wanted nothing to do with him.
Here I come again.
Yeah, right. At this point, we hadn't seen each other in all that time, because I went back to California in 2010, and I moved to Indiana in September of 2011.
Okay.
So we hadn't seen or spoken to each other at that time.
And there was not the Facebook and the Zoom, the Facebook Messenger and the Zoom and all that, the FaceTime.
I blocked it.
Oh, no, it was Facebook, but the FaceTime and stuff wasn't the thing yet.
Oh no, it wasn't. But I did.
But she did block me.
I blocked.
She definitely blocked
me.
He definitely kept in contact with my family, which I was like, "That's your business. You're awesome. That's amazing. If they still love you and want to talk to you." I'm definitely not that person. But I wanted nothing to do because it was a really messy breakup.
Yeah.
And we were like literally fighting a lot even after the breakup. And I just got to a place where I really was having a struggle with forgiveness and with like whatever the case. So by the time I moved to Indiana, I wanted nothing to do with him. And
let me ask you, during all of that conflict, did you know he was your husband? Like how he knew you were his wife? Did you know that was your husband?
No. I want to listen. If in my mind, if you'd asked me, I was never seeing this guy again.
And yeah, she to her it was done.
Yeah,
it was done.
It was absolutely
over.
All
the way done.
Yeah, it was over.
So I had to put in some work.
Yeah,
but there was something there that made you reach back out.
Our family is laughing at y'all's story too in the comments. They loved it.
It's real, sis. It's real. But yeah,
but Keith, there was something there though, like something made you reach out. Well, what was it that that time had elapsed? What was it that made you reach out in Indiana?
Well, like I said, I knew from the beginning. It was her. And my problem was I was young and dumb, and I didn't want anything real like I thought I did. So when it came down to it, I was, out there having fun, doing whatever. And I even tried to date a few other young ladies after her. And it never worked out because the whole time I kept trying to find her in them. So I was like, you know what? Why am I looking for these counterfeits when I could just have the real thing? So let me try to get this thing correct. And come back and see if I can get my woman back. So
Amen.
yeah. And then I reached out and she was like, no. She was like,
I
no.
took that L. I was
As a
like,
matter,
no, sir.
and as a matter of fact, when we talked, she spent her time telling me about another guy that she really wanted to talk to instead. And I was like, all right, well, I deserve that. I did what I did. It is what it is.
Yeah,
So,
I would be lying if I said that I didn't miss the friendship. And I think when the anger for me dissipated, I was able to confront that truth that we are friends and we were friends.
Yeah.
And I would have been lying if I said I didn't miss that. But I wanted nothing to do with him romantically. My thing was like, good luck on the next one. Don't mess it up. And
Like,
so
don't fool her. That is
like don't mess it up. But go with God. So when he expressed an interest, I did tell him where to go. And finally,
and it wasn't to heaven.
He brought and he brought it up again. And finally, I had just had enough of him like trying to inch his way back in there. So finally, here goes ultimatum number 2. He wanted to get me a ticket to fly back to California for Christmas. I'm like, I don't want anything from you. No, thanks.
Yeah, because she wanted to go home. And I was like, well, let me take care of that.
Yeah. And I was like, no, thank you. We are not in a relationship. And so he insisted. And I said, well, fine. If you're going to get me a ticket to go back to California, then you get yourself one too. If you don't have yourself on a plane going with me, then don't bother telling me anymore about you wanting to get back together.
At this point, have you met her family in California?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, at graduation.
Oh, yeah, I met them at graduation, but I had never actually
he had never been to California.
Which is crazy because I had a little sister. My little sister lives in LA. And I had never gone to California to visit her.
Yeah. So I was just like, at this point, you've never been out there, never expressed an interest, never attempted. So go with me or be quiet about the whole thing. And no, you're not paying for my ticket. And this is Christmas time. And so he had already purchased my ticket. He's trying to get his own. And my mom would, every time I would give her the money, she would get the tickets for me because she would find the best deals. And so I suggested that he do the same thing. Well, it was not working out. And my mom's just like, from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think my mom shared this with me later, but she said, son, these tickets are too high. Alex is going to understand. Like, just don't worry. And he was like, no, ma'am. No, I can't. Like, I have to go out there. She's never going to talk to me again.
I didn't care how much them tickets cost. I was going to get a ticket.
Yeah. So he spent a considerable amount to fly out on Christmas Eve. He came out there and it was only a 4-day trip. It was only 4 days. And he came out there on Christmas Eve. And I still didn't budge. I was like, oh, you got the ticket. Great. My rules have not changed. If you don't want to be in a relationship, please don't put your face on me. And that's exactly what he did. And at that point, we hadn't seen each other for a good 2 years. And so we got back together Christmas Eve, 2012.
Oh my gosh.
That's so cool.
Oh my gosh. I love
so you went back to Indiana, you went back to Carolina. How did that come
it was
together?
More to the story. I don't know how much time we got, but it's still a lot more to
No.
We got time. I'm really trying hard, guys, to make it.
No,
you're fine. Yeah, you're absolutely fine. So part of that is going to be.
And thank you so much to everyone in the comments. Thank you so much for commenting. We appreciate y'all.
I have not even seen those.
But
that's all right. But part of what we want to ask you guys about is like that distance and how'd you make a long distance relationship work?
Well, even when we, I don't know what his perspective is, but when we decided to get back together, that was one of the things that we kind of touched on, not knowing that we had like horrible communication at the time. Terrible. But that was one of the things that we touched on. And so one of the things that he said when we broke up in 2010 was that a long distance relationship was not what he was interested in. And then fast forward to 2012, I say, well, if you don't want to be in a relationship, I suggest we not kiss or whatever. And that's exactly what you do. So in my mind, the contract signed. You want to do a long distance relationship because you know where I live. And so I don't think it was a thing in the beginning, but after a while, I felt sure in my bones that he was supposed to be here. And this brother was not budging. You understand me? He was like saying, in my opinion, it was like flippant stuff. Like, I'm not going down there. I'm not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be here. And I'm like, the Lord has not told me that, not one time. And if he did, I had picked up and moved my life somewhere foreign. I don't know how many times. If he did say to go back to South Carolina, I would do it. But that's not what he told me. And I just felt like, why is he not listening to me? Like, Lord, why are you showing this to me? And he's like fighting against it. And now I'm questioning whether I really heard you or not. And now it makes perfect sense why it's that way. But at the time, I didn't know that, nor did I have language to explain that. So I was just very frustrated. I spent the entire time being frustrated.
Yeah, and then
How long were you long distance before you moved?
2.5 years.
Yeah, because we started back at the end. So pretty much 2013 is when we were relationship. Really, I mean, it started because it was Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So like 2013.
So 2013. It's 2.5 years, and he didn't move here until May of
2015 is what I moved here.
Okay. What's your perspective, Keith, on the long distance relationship?
So honestly, with me, I don't really like doing long distance relationship because I'm the type of dude that I like having my lady around. Like quality time is like one of my love languages. So it's just we don't really have to do anything. I just like your presence, you know. But for me, it was just like I knew I wanted to be with her, and it was really a God thing because again, I could have dated or messed with anybody around there, but it's like when you know, you know. And I'm like, all right, well, if I'm going to be with her, this is what I have to do at the moment because I don't feel like I'm supposed to go there. She doesn't feel like she's supposed to come here. So right now we're kind of in limbo. But then it was like her prayer became, all right, God, I can't talk to your son. So you talk to him for
gosh,
me.
yeah.
You talk to him for me. And it was
that was great.
Because I tell you no lie, it was like all of a sudden everything in my life started falling apart. And everything started pointing to Indiana. And I mean, literally, I had gotten, money troubles was never really, once I got out on my own and started making my own money troubles was never a thing for me. All of a sudden, the place where I was living went under new management. They decided they didn't want me living there anymore. So I got ejected, not evicted, ejected, because they decided they didn't want me in that apartment anymore. So I got put out of that apartment, ended up moving in with my cousin. Well, while I'm staying with my cousin gets a job in another part of the state, so I can't stay with him anymore. So I end up moving in with my brother. So while I'm staying with my brother, I was working at a company at the time, working as a computer programmer. But we had like these group of Christian men who used to get together. We would have like Bible studies, things like that together. Well, it just so happened one day I was talking to one of my mentors. I find out he's from Indiana. All this time I've been talking to this man, never knew he was from Indiana. I'm riding down the street. Every car tag I see says Indiana. Every license plate, Indiana. I'm listening to the radio. The radio says Kokomo, Indiana. I'd never heard of Kokomo, Indiana before. Then the kicker was my manager at the job I was working. I don't know how we got on that conversation, but somehow Indiana came up. Guess where he's from? Kokomo, Indiana.
The Lord serving it to you on a platter.
God was like, "What else do I need to tell you, sir?" So I ended up coming. I ended up coming to visit in January of 2015.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I think I stayed here for like 2 weeks. I stayed for like 2 weeks, and then after that, we got to talking, and I could just tell she really didn't want me to leave. So I believe I told her then, "Hey, don't worry about it. I'm going to move here in May." And I don't think she believed me.
No.
I don't think she believed me at all.
There was no date with that. It was just May.
I just said I'm going to move here in May because I figured May would be enough time for me to get the stuff together I need to get together. And so May came, and I remember 2 weeks before I went into my manager's office, and I told him, "Hey, I quit. I quit." So
Just saying confirmation.
Yeah, I just went in there. I quit my job, and I packed up my car. I told my brother, I said, "Hey, man, look, I think you knew this was coming." Because my brother, he's not like my blood brother. He's like my best friend, but he's my brother. And I told him, "Hey, man, you already know what it is. Me and Alex back together." I was like, "Bro, I think I'm moving. I gotta go to be with her." He was hard down fighting me because he didn't want me to move. None of my friends wanted me to move.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
Like, yeah, no. And I mean, it was crazy because when I did, and the craziest part was I had a job lined up when I was coming here. I was supposed to be working for an advertisement company. So I pack up my car, I'm driving, and I'm on my way here. I call them to find out what time they want me to report to work on Monday. They tell me, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Parker. I thought someone called you. We revamped the position as a management position, and you weren't qualified, so we gave the job to somebody else." I was
Oh,
like,
man.
That's my first time hearing that.
"Oh,
That's
okay,
wild.
yeah."
That's
So
wild.
I came there. So you can imagine me kind of having to come here and tell this black woman I don't have no job. I was coming here. But yeah, but like I said, God finally I stopped fighting it. I listened to what he was telling me. I packed up my car. I moved out here. We got together. I came here in May. I proposed in June. We got married in September.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
For
So,
those
yeah,
out there that are in long distance relationships, what tips or what keys to success would you give them to say, hey, this is what you need to do to make it work?
Wow.
Or
I would say,
if you know that someone, if they know that they don't want to be in a long distance relationship, would you tell them to possibly rethink it?
if I would say if you know for a fact that long distance is not going to work for you, don't waste that other person's time.
Mm.
And don't waste your time as well. One thing I will say is you have to weigh the pros and cons of it, because if you're a type of person who likes a person to be around you, likes to have your person there, then long distance is probably going to be really hard. I would say, for one, you really need to pray and stay in God's face about it,
Yeah.
because there is going to be all types of temptation all around you when it comes to that thing. But if you have decided and made up in your mind that this is the person that you really want to be with, then you have to focus on making that thing work. Be intentional about making it work. Call that person every day. If you can video chat with that person. Set up video dates, that type of thing. And like, just do little things to let them know that you're thinking about them. Text them, send them random gifts, like that type of stuff. Like, you have to let that person know that they're still number one priority in your life, even if they're not there.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be very intentional about making that thing work.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good advice. I would say that because there were times where, listen, I've lost the phone off the top of a car. There have been times where we have not had a phone. Like, don't ask, okay. There have been times where he didn't have a phone or I didn't have a phone, and we would just email. I think that was a good few months that we were literally, the only way we could talk to each other was via email, and he would email me. So that's actually really great. Long distance is not for the weak. And it's not for the, like, it's not for the, oh my God, girl, like, he got 6 figures and he's so cute and stuff. Like, that's not what long distance is for. And I thank God that both of us are, we are absolutely Christ followers. That's never been a question. And so it wasn't even, and even though it went against everything that he wanted to do, we still went through with it, because at the end of the day, it was really like God called you to that person. And even when I was fighting it, because what God straight told me, I was fighting with God, like, no, that's not him. I'm not doing it. And God was like, yes, you are, because regardless of how mad you are, that is who I made for you. And you have been asking me for years about being in a relationship, why guys don't see you, why guys don't want to be with you, why guys don't talk to you, and all of this stuff. And you've asked me about having a relationship that was better than your parents. That was what you prayed about when you were a child. Like, I was 12 years old, 12, but somewhere between 12 and 14, the pubescent years. And I'm like, so he brought all of that stuff back to me. And, his thing was like, I remember very clearly that he asked me, how dare you ask me to make steak for you in the microwave? If I am the master chef, if I am the person if I am the person who makes things come together, and I am the person who takes time, I am the chef in this mug. Don't tell me how to cook my food. And I'm telling you, I prepared him, I've seasoned him, and he's ready for you. And this is who you're going to have.
That's good, Alex.
Well, fine. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Okay.
And so, and listen, because I wanted that at that point, I think I was the one who wanted to be done. Like, the second time around, I wanted to be done with the long distance. Because I'm like, all I can see and all I can hear is the stubborn man who is not paying me any attention. who was not listening to me, who was fighting me tooth and nail. I prayed to God, but I didn't find out everything was going wrong for him like until years later. Like I didn't know that at the time. I didn't even know if God heard me or if he was going to listen. I thought he was like, girl, shut up, quit tripping. But what he did do is convict me about fighting him and just bringing up all the things that I said. And so with that, I've never forgotten the Lord just getting me told like that. And so I think that has to be the grounding, is my very long drawn out point. Like that has to be the grounding, is the fact that if God is calling you to that person, he will provide a way to make it work. And he will do that by any means. He'll do that with your environment. He'll do that with your financial means. He'll do that with your own stubborn self. He will.
That's good. That's really good. Now,
We are loving this.
yeah, I think you all just touched on something like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if you all had to like talk about your personalities, I think you would say they're definitely opposite.
Yeah.
Alex, you are bright and beautiful, and Keith is cool and handsome and like real smooth. So, well, he's bright, but I mean, it's one of those things where
Her light shine.
Yeah.
You know when she's in the room.
Before
they're
me.
definitely
Yeah.
opposites
Let
though
your
when
light
it
so
comes to
shine.
their personalities. But how did that come together for you all? Like, what attracted you to each other? Because you definitely have different personalities.
Child, I don't know. I spent a lot. And the only reason why I say that is because I have never been in a relationship before Keith. I had never been in a relationship before Keith. And so I don't know the rules. I'm rough around the edges. Like, so many fights, daddy issues I didn't know would come up. And so I spent a large part of our relationship actually not liking him at all. But I knew that I loved him. Like I knew that I loved him. I was in love with him and I couldn't leave him. So even then I knew that there was just like still this kind of tether. But I really spent a lot of our relationship not liking him at all. Because a lot of that had to do with the fact that we didn't have language to speak to each other or understand each other.
Yeah.
We definitely lived together before he moved here, so that was a disaster probably.
Yeah.
So we
Y'all ain't in that boat.
I was like, can I say that? So we did live together, and also I think I still was that little girl who didn't like herself.
Okay.
And that affected the way I spoke to him, the way I viewed him, the way I didn't seek to understand him. I wanted to understand him, but I didn't have strategy or mind to try to understand him. And so I honestly could not answer that. The attraction part, I can tell you how it's sustained, but I can't tell you the attraction part at all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it for one, it was just always something different about her. There was always this type of glow about her. She just like always stood out, but really, and then for me, like this was after because I always say when I really started taking my salvation seriously, was when I got into college, and it was just something about her that just drew me to her. And the other part was I liked her lips, and I was like, man, one day I'm gonna kiss her. One day I'm gonna kiss her. So I was like, yeah, and I told her that too, and she was like, no, you're not. She told me I was never gonna do that, but we see how that ended.
I did.
So yeah, but really with her, it's just something about her that balances me. And that's what I was telling her before. I think we really balance each other.
Yeah,
and I think
I feel like Pastor, write that down. Balance.
Yeah.
I gotta hurry.
Because she has such a fiery spirit, and I have such a cool spirit, and I think together we just bring that thing to.
We are fire and ice, man.
We are definitely fire and ice, and we look at our colors, the bright red and the blue.
For sure. Yeah, we are straight.
No, I asked that question because I mean there could be someone out there as well that think, oh well, he ain't nothing like me, or she ain't nothing like me. This ain't gonna work, But want to encourage someone to say, listen, just because you all don't have the same personalities, or you don't have the same interests and things like that, that could be something that God's putting you together to balance each other out, just like you just mentioned.
One thing that I always say about that, and I tell people this all the time: if two of you are exactly alike, one of you is unnecessary.
Yeah, he is always.
I always say that if two of you are exactly alike, one of you is unnecessary.
Yeah,
because it's not just about balance. And I think we had talked a bit about this last night about being an agitator. Remember
Yeah.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the difference is sometimes lead to conflict, but not bad conflict, but
Oh
that
my God.
conflict
And they
leads to
still
maturity
do.
and the growth.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely, we are there to push each other to grow. But if we are exactly the same, there's nothing there to challenge you. And if there's nothing there to challenge you, there's nothing there really making you want to change or making you want to be better.
But accept the challenge though.
Yeah.
Accept the challenge, because I think when you give, first of all, I've always known that relationships were work. I knew when we got married, there was no more back door for me.
Yeah.
For me, there was always a back door. When we got married, the back door closed. I was like, dang, now what do we do? I didn't have a choice.
Locked in for real.
Yeah, right. I'm like, stay in and fight. So for me, if you don't, I've always told people that P is a job, but he is the best job ever. And one of my friends said, stop like comparing your husband to work. Like stop comparing your husband to a job. And I'm like, I'm not. Because the point that I try to get across is that as much as I love him, as much as he's great, as much as he helps me, for the wonderful human being that he is, that just happens to love Jesus, because we love that for us, it still is work. And if you enter into covenant with each other thinking that you don't have to fight or work as hard, and of course God being in the center, I hope that goes without saying. But you do have to do the work. You have to do the work. And so if you enter into covenant with someone thinking that that's not a thing, then you are that naive, or that denial or whatever is going to kill your relationship, and it's going to start with you. It's going to start with you.
So and I think people look at work as a bad thing because a lot of people don't like their jobs. But, you know, a lot of times, if you find what you love doing, then, you know, it's that saying, you'll never work another day in your life, right? So that type of work is what you're looking at when you come to your relationships, and making sure that you find that thing you love. So that way it doesn't become this bad thing you got to go to for 8 hours a day. It's something that you get to enjoy to do on a daily basis. So, yeah.
And I think that's why it always made sense for me, because I will never work a job where I'm not fulfilled.
Exactly.
Not like I could like at Chrysler, I'm sure, like I hate the fact that I don't have a paycheck like theirs, but I could never work at Chrysler. That would not fulfill me in any way. And so I think that's why I always use that analogy, because I am never going to do anything that I can't put my whole self into. That's just
I love it. I love it.
No, absolutely.
And if you don't like the word work, just use effort. Marriage requires effort. If you don't want to put effort into it, don't sign up for it. It requires you to think outside of yourself, and to sacrifice, and to work for the greater good.
Is thoughtful about that, I think, because it's one of those things that you see within the marriage. But before the marriage, what is there to see but the wedding, right? And the ring he got you, which was like, oh my God, girl. And so there's nothing else to see after that. And so I do think that you kind of, unless you just are grounded, or you just have really good people who disciple you before you get married, I think people who are getting ready to get married need people to disciple them just as much. Because I think without that, you kind of do build up this fantasy, because you don't know what kind of hard you're going to have to deal with that person, right? And so once you get married, it's not like you chose this hard, because you didn't know it was hard. And so I think that if we all understood that to the point where, like, okay, whatever the issue you're going to run into, you do have to understand that it is going to be some tough days. They just look different for everybody.
No, you're absolutely right.
I think we have to let go of that romanticized fantasy of what we think a relationship or a marriage is supposed to be. Because it's like, I think TV and romantic comedies and these types of things have made people think like there's not supposed to be any type of anything that ever goes wrong in a marriage. And if it does, then that means it's supposed to be over. No, like there's always going to be some type of thing that comes up. But the point is again, you got to wake up every morning and decide, this is the person that I know God chose for me. This is the person that's been made for me, and this is the person that I'm going to do life with, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
but again,
Not a
if
Hallmark
that's the
movie.
person God told you to be
Oh
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Only if God
Only
said,
if
yeah.
that's the person God told you to be with. But
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
be
And I
willing to
think
put in that
sometimes
work.
too, people get caught up in the marriage day, right? Like when you think
Yeah.
about a wedding, like you got all this built up into it and all this money and all this, it's going to take you about 20, 30 minutes to get through that ceremony.
Absolutely.
And now you got to live life together,
The
and
rest of your
so
life.
much goes into that wedding. And we always tell people, remember, it's one day and it's about 20 minutes.
I always like to tell people, women especially, because I think women more so than men tend to get caught up wanting a ring, wanting a wedding, feeling that they deserve to be a wife. I always tell women to remember that the man you dated will be the same man you're married to. If you know you really don't like that dude and you know he's not the one God said to be hitched
Right.
with him, please don't do it just because you want to fulfill the fantasy. It's
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
go well. It won't be what you want it to be. You
It ain't
may
worth
have had a great wedding day. You will not have a good marriage if you're going into it just for
The pomp and circumstance.
Yeah.
I would even argue that type of thinking going into marriage is dangerous.
Yeah.
It is dangerous.
Yeah.
This year we will be 10 years old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think the latter part of, first of all, we had a shotgun weddings, which we regret it now, but we straight had a shotgun wedding the first time.
Like y'all wedding story, so
that was wild. But at the back end of our marriage, I realized that there is a lot of because of who you two are, I'm understanding better why God created marriage. I don't know all of the ins and outs of God's brain. I would never suggest that. However, I understand better and better why God created marriage. Marriage is meant to be a picture to the world of Christ's love, which I've always heard that, but I didn't really understand it.
say it.
And within Christ loving us, what is there? There is forgiveness, and the door is always open. And I also always saw marriage as a mirror of yourself. Like I have to. Why did I have beef with P all the time? Because I was having beef with myself. I was having conflicts with myself, and I was sick of looking at the mirror every day, looking at how ugly I was. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's what marriage does. It exposes that kind of blemish in you. And when you live with that person, that's something you don't want to have to reconcile with, is how like jacked up you are. And I think that's the same thing as far as like when you look at Christ, when we all look at Christ, that is exactly what you see is your own fleshliness. And so I do believe that marriage is a representation of that. And so if you are going into it without any discipleship, with like any like, ideologies or notions about what it's supposed to be, no matter what you're basing it on, movies, books, whatever, then it is ultimately dangerous, and you're not doing the kind of ministry work that you and your husband might be meant to do in the earth.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's why it's important to have forums like this as well, and for couples to connect like we do, because in that way you realize that some of the stuff that we're going through, y'all going through, they going through, and now it becomes normal that conflict and different things happen within relationships, and it's not something where oh, this happened. We splitting apart. We got to get a divorce. Like, like, calm down. Like, that's just part of life.
like chill out.
Like y'all gonna be all right. Like,
sad. Like nobody stays married anymore. Like, don't even get me started. But yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tiffany always has questions that these two questions she always want to make sure that she asks all of our couples. So I'll step back and let her ask those two questions.
First, I want to acknowledge all of our people commenting on YouTube. We appreciate you, as well as Facebook. Our pastor is here. Thank you so much for spending time with us, as well as our youth pastor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate y'all so much. But I do want to give it to Keith. what is the best thing about being married to Alex? And then after he answers, Alex, what is the best thing about being married to Keith?
Oh Lord. Well, some of these things I can't say on here, so
Well, it's a family show.
But no, really, it's getting to wake up to my best friend every day. Like, it's really getting to wake up to my best friend every day. She is the best headache I've ever had in my life. Like, the best headache I've ever had. But she really,
headache is accurate.
She really does push me. She really does challenge me, like I said, and she really helps me to grow, because she really is. Even though she doesn't think she is definitely the definition of a helpmeet, because I know that no matter what's going on, I can always look to her. I can always count on her. She's always got my back, even if sometimes she wants to box me in it. But she will definitely always have me no matter what. So I think the growth, the maturity, the growing together, just the knowing you got somebody that's got you like that, that's what I have in her. So yeah, she truly is my lover, my homie, my friend, my best friend. Like, she is all those things that all those people sing about. That's her.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Miss Parker?
Yes. I think the best thing about pudding is the fact, I did just say that, didn't I? Jeez. I'm having to navigate a lot of spaces where it's not okay to be me. I think that's the shining star of his love for me. It's a lot of other things too. But I think that's like the bright star in his love for me. It's the fact that he allows me to be me, whether it's ugly, irritating, helpful or not. And he is not, and that culminates into him being, you will never hear him say that I can't be recognized for something, or because it like dims him somehow. First of all, he's too self-assured for that. Like, he's confident in himself. But he doesn't feel like he has to like extinguish me in any way in order for him to be great. I love that about him.
Yeah.
He's not a needy person. He's not a person that feels like, you done been at the school for 7 million hours and you've been talking to so-and-so and you talk to all these guys around here, and you like, that is never him. And I love that I get to be me in the space that I get to be me. And it's not challenged, it's not questioned, and it's not extinguished. And I think that's what I love about him the most.
I love it so much.
That's so cool. That's really cool. You two, thank you all so very much for taking some time with us this evening. We know that this was going to be good, and for those that hang out and come hang out with us, Keith and Alex are part of the Stay Late crew. So
Stay Late crew.
we normally we could go on like this for another hour. We know. But thank y'all so much. We really appreciate y'all jumping on with us this evening, and we'll definitely keep this conversation going at the next gathering. So thank you again
so much.
Before we get out of here, we normally do our anniversary shout outs, but we don't have any wedding anniversaries for February. So we'll definitely say happy Valentine's Day to everyone, and hope everyone have a great Valentine's Day, and do something sweet for your sweetie.
Don't let Valentine's Day make y'all fight either.
No, not at all.
Just like we said for Christmas, don't let the holidays make y'all fight.
Yep, not at all.
Ladies, if you want something, say something right now.
Absolutely.
Wait until the 15th to be like, and you didn't do.
Yeah, nah.
Say something right now.
Absolutely.
I want something always. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then if you haven't heard already, we are going on a cruise, y'all. We are going to cruise in October 20th through the 24th. It is fall break in Indiana, so you don't have to worry about the kiddos, but everyone is invited to come. You don't have to be part of the marriage ministry. You can be single as you want to be, but we are going on a cruise October 20th through the 24th. This year, this Sunday after church, we're going to do a quick informational session and try and answer any questions that anyone has. Meet us right in front of the baptismal pool on that side of the sanctuary, right after church, and we'll answer any questions that anyone may have. And if you need help or anything like that, we're going to try and point you in the right direction. So looking forward to it. That's going to be a lot of fun. Jewel of the Seas on Royal Caribbean. So if you are interested, you need more information, come hang out with us right after service this Sunday.
Speaking of that, we want you to come to service.
Absolutely. We are at the Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church, 1599 East Sycamore Road in Kokomo. Corporate worship 10:30, Sunday school at 9:15. Come hang out with us. We have a great time at the Mount, and you will not be disappointed. Trust me on that one. But again, thank y'all for joining us. This is the Marriage Matters Podcast. I'm Alan.
Our next podcast is February 26th. We hope to see all of y'all there. I am Tiffany.
Thank y'all for joining us. Have a good one.